I want to get back to that community that our ancestors had. There was so much stuff that we learned in looking at the Negro history, the American
Yeah.
Negro history. And one of the things that really put on my spirit that was heavy was that when a new Negro man would come into the community, it didn't matter whether he was from the north, the south, the east, the west, but when he would come into the community with his wife, that community would build him a house from scratch. And if you're a
Yeah.
member of that community, you have to provide the food and the clothing from the women's aspect. And this is what we see in movies, right? When you see the new family come in and they're bringing food and they're bringing clothing and they're saying, "Oh, welcome to our community." The Negro men would build the house, and if you couldn't build, you had to provide money. And if in most cases you had to do both. This is our history. This is what our people did. You might find that hard to believe with the generations you're dealing with now. But at one point, especially after slavery, this is what our people did. So my goal is to bring that version of community back. Because that version of community back with a strong force and fierceness against anti-Negro thought and hate that would lead to a Tulsa is something that I want to protect. So I have to then, like Marcel said, if you can't find a candidate, then be that candidate. Well, if you can't find a community, you have to start beginning to build that community or see yourself as a member in that community. So me, even though I'm 320 pounds, 6'6", I probably wouldn't be the one going off to war. I would probably be the one stand back to help get the people who are going to war fed. And that was something that we even can see even in biblical days, because it was the duty of King David to feed his brothers, right? So it's the
Yeah.
duty of the Negro people to feed our people. It is our duty. It's not just something we want to do or something we like to do, because in many cases, the things that's necessary is not always liked. But we
Mhm.
must prepare ourselves to be put in that situation so that when the time does come, when there are 40 acres and a mule given out and I'm on my land, I can then say, "Great Big Mama, I did it." And I won't just be sitting there looking at the land, not knowing what to do then.
One point I wanted to make to you, Khalif, when you were talking about the building of houses within our community, that also was done by indigenous communities, both here in Turtle Island as well as in
Wow.
Africa, and that's called a gift economy. And that's what we used to do. It was basically I got you next type of economy. So if I moved into a neighborhood, you help build my house, then whatever I can do, I got you next. And that's
Yes,
basically
yes,
how.
James, yes. No, brother James, I'm sorry I didn't even mention that. And I'm thankful I got the chills on my neck from when you said that. That is true. The only debt you owed was to help build the next house for the next man.
Yeah.
So your debt was indebted to your brother. You
Mhm.
were indebted to
Yeah.
your neighborhood. You were indebted to your community. So imagine a community we don't lock doors in, because literally everybody around here either knows each other, either birthed a child, or we literally help build the house you're in. I mean, that type of power is not even reciprocated in today's time with other communities. And I do believe that it is something that is indicative of our experience from the native indigenous people from Turtle Island, plus those taken in traffic through the transatlantic slave trade, to us being here today. Yeah, we embody all of that. And that does explain why we carried those traditions. My goal is to just relive those traditions, because I honestly feel there is nothing greater than doing that type of service. Because even Christ acknowledged that the greatest gift is not necessarily to be called king, but to be called servant of your own brother. And that's why he washed his disciples' feet. Not that he was necessarily beneath them, but that the way he can show his love for them was to serve them. And I think that so many times we've adopted the colonizers' mindset of selfishness, that we've seemed to have lost that mindset of cohesiveness with each other. And I think that truly is the crux of our experience. And once we fix that, I believe everything else will come. And we don't need to wait for a signing of a signature from the government to get that done. And so that's what I firmly believe is